buddies, we are back for another Dokkan battle video. Today we are finishing up the red zone no item sweep with Raditz, our boy. Raditz, of course, who is the very worst premium unit Dokkan has ever released. Raditz does nothing spectacular, nothing really out of the ordinary, nothing that would merit bringing him into most of these fights. I think a fight like Baby Raditz can perform well in, even though, I mean, even in that fight, it's not as well as you'd like, right? So, you know, it's like, we do want to keep that in mind that we're bringing a double goose egg, you know, of our 7 team slots, 2 of them do nothing in nearly every fight. But our first fight here against Ledgic, Ledgic, like, it's improbable to lose to Ledgic. Like, there's nothing this guy could do, right? Like, we just destroy Ledgic and we move on to the next fight. Alright, so we move on to Lord Luud. The really good thing about Raditz's team is, you know, his 2 leader skills are Pure Saiyan and Saiyan Saga. We don't actually use LR Goku and Piccolo in any of these runs. I mean, that is foolish. I probably should have brought them against Baby. Baby actually did take me a couple of tries, too. Baby is still a tricky fight sometimes, right? But Raditz, we really have a great roster to play with, right? Keep in mind that I don't really subscribe to the idea so much of, like, going into, like, all these red zone fights and just trotting out the same lineup. I mean, I know a lot of times we are using very similar characters across some of these runs, right? You know, like, the gods are oftentimes on these teams, or Carnival Goku. If Carnival Goku is on the leader skill, I bring him, right? Like, he's just that good. You know, characters like that. But for the most part, you really want to bring characters that are playing to the fight's strengths, right? So Luud has a physical phase, and he has an STR phase. So I bring characters to destroy that part, right? So like LR Kaioken Goku here, I have not used him very much in these red zone no item run challenges, because he's just, I mean, he's more of an offensive unit. There's just minor issues with him. But like here, he was able to do his job, right? And of course, we're still using, you know, some other obvious picks. Carnival Goku, of course, recently came out. He's supremely good. We have DOKKANFEST Kid Goku, Path to Power Kid Goku as well. Very, very strong. I mean, the thing about Raditz leading the Pure Saiyan team is the Pure Saiyan team is going to get updated every single, like, month, basically. Like, there's always going to be new Pure Saiyan characters. So, here was the fight against Lord Luud. We, of course, shit on him. Not really too bad at all. Alright, now we're moving on to the fight against Rilldo. Rilldo is still a tricky fight. You could easily, I mean, you could take some of the best characters in the game and you potentially could get caught in this fight. Either with, I would probably say so more with sloppy team building though. So Rilldo, there's 3 phases here. Every phase, when he supers you, he lowers your defense, right? So, he can, you know, then begin to chip away at some of your defenses and maybe some weaker characters, and then just do ridiculous damage to them. Then in the final phase, Rilldo does have a lock. Rilldo locks in the final phase, right? So because of that, you know, you really don't want to bring AGL characters into this fight at all, I would say, unless it's like UI Goku or something like that, right? A character who's just going to dodge everything. I did actually bring Tech Bardock here, right? This was actually one of the first times I had started to like sort of like use him after he came out. And, you know, having his Scouter can be very effective in a fight like this, right? I was thinking maybe if I could, you know, have his Scouter up while I was doing battle with the Tech Rilldo at the end that could lock, that would help give me a little bit of an extra advantage, right? Because Tech Bardock, he shows up on turn 2, that means we will have his, whatchamacallit, that means we'll have his Scouter up until we get to turn, turn 6, right? Which is very helpful. Any turns with the Scouter up against Tech Rilldo will be helpful, again, because his lock really is a huge issue. We're using some obvious characters here. LR Int Namek Goku. Still one of the better Int characters in the game, right? Definitely want to use him, you know, in fights like, you know, the Tech Full Power Frieza, Tech Bojack, Tech Rilldo, right? I think Namek Goku is a great pick. We use Legendary Super Saiyan Broly as well. Broly, of course, is able to stack up just like Namek Goku is. You know, these characters build up their defense, and then they're able to sort of, you know, handle things better by the time we get to Rilldo, right? Again, pointing it out with Raditz. Raditz, throughout almost all these runs, he's doing one thing, and that's floating off rotation. I mean, you just see Raditz doing, like, these 3 million attack stats. It's just very scary. I've mentioned this before in the movie side of things when we no-itemed it with Raditz's team. It really is good, though, that he is a villain. Because, you know, his attack is not spectacular, his defense is not spectacular. But the fact that he's a villain means it's easier. Like, he takes less damage from these villain red zone bosses than he would if he was a superclass character. If Raditz was exactly the same stats down to the T, but he was just superclass instead, it would be even harder because he would be getting hit even harder from all these bosses, right? But we're able to hide Raditz effectively in the Rilldo fight, and then there we go. All right, now we're moving on to the Baby fight. Baby is a pretty tough fight. I think even still, right? Even, you know, after months and months of releases, lots of really good characters have come out, Baby can be challenging, right? Because the thing about Baby is in his final... I mean, if you get a terrible opening rotation like this, sure. Yeah, nice amount of super attacks here that we got. But, you know, you make it to the end of this fight, and then Grade 8 Baby can really bully you. Just doing insane amounts of AoE, monstrous damage to the entire rotation. Can be very tricky, and it can be very, you know, sort of scary to work around with, right? And then, oftentimes, because of the fact that Baby's final phase is int, and then the phase directly before that is also int, and there's no STR phase at all, you, for the most part, do want to come in here with pretty much a full physical lineup, but that can be a little bit tricky in these earlier couple of phases here. Occasionally, I have run into some resistance from Tech Baby and AGL Super Baby 1 as well, right? Sort of just giving me a little bit more trouble than I would like, right? Occasionally they can, right? Now, the good thing for Raditz here is that I love that we're reviving against the first phase. I mean, listen, it is what it is. I could only do with what the game dishes to me, right? We ended up reviving very early. That's okay. We can still come back. We have a lot of very powerful characters on the team, right? Where we will be able to sort of make things happen. But really, once we get through the first couple of phases, we're so overloaded with a physical team that it'll be easier to deal with those last couple of phases. And Raditz himself, I mean, this is for sure like the best red zone fight for Raditz, because of the fact that you have double int phases, but there is no STR phase for Raditz to have to worry about, right? Because the thing about fighting Omega, I guess Raditz could potentially be handy against int Final Form Cooler as well, but that Final Form Cooler just does me so much damage. He just hits too hard for Raditz, right? But you know, Raditz this is definitely the best fight for Raditz. Like if there's any fight he performs best in, it's this Baby fight. Because Omega has that STR phase, which is very scary, right? STR Sin can be a huge issue. So there we go. We, you know, have a pretty horrible start. I mean, a lot of it has to do with, like, our opening rotations and how key and stuff like that lines up, right? You know, things can be a bit tricky. One other thing I should point out, too, with Raditz's leader skill is that, for the most part, all of the really good characters we're bringing are not on Raditz's 200% leader skill. But Fasha and Tech Bardock, like, those are characters that are on the 200%. So, like, one thing to keep in mind with Raditz, not what I'm about to say is not including Fasha, but, like, if we're looking at Raditz compared to all these other characters that we've been using in this video, Raditz is on the 200% leader skill, and, like, all these other other characters are not, and they're outperforming him so much. It's just so crazy. Again, very, very, very rough start right here, but we are able to sort of come back and get our victory against Baby. Again, Baby can be tricky. Baby is a tough fight. You don't want to just pretend like Baby is like a completely inconsequential fight. I mean, it's like, yeah, if we're running in with Gamma 1 and 2, sure, but if we're not doing that, you know, if you're not using some of the newest, hottest characters, you know, this can be a bit trickier. And remember, Raditz is not a recent DOKKANFEST at this point. He came out several months ago. I just was very slow to get started on his challenge. I didn't even start doing these Red Zone challenges until Golden Week, when Goku and Gohan came out in EGL Cell, right, which was after Raditz anyway. So, there we go. There is the Baby fight. Let's move on to the next one. Alright guys, now moving on to the fight against Super 17. This one was really tough. Just because Super 17, this is like the worst possible boss for Raditz, right? Like the only... I guess I would say this guy. And then, of course, AoE Broly is actually impossible. Like, if AoE Broly supers on a rotation with Raditz, like, you've lost, right? Like, it's like, when I was able to make it past Broly, it's because I didn't let AoE Broly get a super attack off, right? Like, that's how it had to be done. This is tough. Super 17 hits way too hard for Raditz, right? Type disadvantage. Not really too much we could do here. Luckily, we have the LR Goku and Vegeta, right? And we have, like, DOKKANFEST Kid Goku. Some of these more recent, super powerful options. Kid Goku is so busted that it's like you really just bring him into, like, any situation and he can really excel. Kid Goku can really potentially help, like, Raditz out quite a bit, too. Right? Remember, Kid Goku, if he gets the 7 rainbow orbs, Kid Goku gives damage reduction to the entire rotation, which... It really just shaves off so much potential damage the rotation might take, and especially when we're talking about something like this physical Raditz here, if he has to take several normals from Super 17 based upon how the attacks are lined up, right, Kid Goku can really assist us here a lot. UI Goku is another huge asset here. We just need as many AGL characters that do non-Ki Blast super attacks as possible, right? It's like, UI Goku, man, there was quite a few people who pretended as though UI Goku was completely dead, and it's like, no, like, I can definitely say I do feel more comfortable with UI Goku in many of these fights than LR Namek Goku and Full Power Frieza. I mean, sure enough, even when those characters came out, I thought UI Goku was better, and still now, it's just, we're in, like, an environment where many characters can't take hits from these strong enemies, right? So UI Goku just... dodging is exactly what we need, right? Because these million damage super attacks, it's very uncommon for characters to be able to handle it. But UI Goku, he could take probably one normal from a lot of these bosses, but if he dodges a super attack, that's all we potentially need. Now, I did bring Tech Kale and Khalifa here. It probably isn't the greatest idea for this fight. But I guess at the same time, it's kind of like Super 17 is actually going to do a lot of damage to us, and there's not really too much we could potentially do to avoid that. It's just like having double Raditz at, like, Super 17, like, unless every single turn Super 17 is just, like, not attacking one of the slots, like, it's going to be a huge issue that we're going to have to worry about, right? Now, it's not surprising this is a winning run right here, because we were able to get Goku and Vegeta to transform before we even reach Super 17. I mean, you guys just know, that is so huge. You get Goku and Vegeta transformed, it is just so big for how effectively powerful that they could, be. So this allows us to potentially tank a super or do just incredible damage. I mean, remember Goku and Vegeta, they're doing guaranteed crits. What is it? It's I think with 24 Ki, they do guaranteed crits. We only got one super attack, though, which is very unfortunate. Does Super 17 super right here and we dodge? I've dodged, I think, multiple super attacks with Kid Goku on this super... No, he just doesn't super at all in this first turn. Okay, that's very helpful. How much damage does Raditz take right here? 100k. Okay. Yeah. 100k. Certainly not what I would consider great. 100k per normal, right? That's with Kid Goku's damage reduction. So it's like, yeah, let's try and do as much damage as possible to Super 17 as quickly as possible, because the Raditzes are not really able to make it happen, let's just say. We're able to make it through the Super 17 fight. This one was definitely tough again. Raditz can't stand up to Super 17. I mean, are we shocked by that? Like, hell no, right? Like, it's like, we gotta be very, very careful. And of course, Carnival Goku, I talk about him seemingly every video now. The combo of what Carnival Goku brings to the table is just so crazy. I do think Vegeta and Trunks are #1, but goddamn, do I feel very confident in saying Carnival Goku is #2. Carnival Goku is so dumb. He really is. Alright guys, now we're moving on to the fight against the Shadow Dragons. Remember that the Shadow Dragons is one of the longest Red Zone fights. I think Frieza, Full Power Frieza is probably a little bit longer of a fight. I know Full Power Frieza, like that whole fight actually has more health than the Shadow Dragons, but it's also much scarier, right? Like the Frieza fight is basically just a harder version of this fight. Because Ice Shenron at the end, he is right on the cusp of being a 1 million damage super attack boss, but he's not all the way there yet, right? Whereas, like, Full Power Frieza, you know, he's doing, like, 1.5 million, essentially, and he's able to build up his damage, too. It just can become very tricky and very annoying having to deal with what Full Power Frieza sort of brings to the table, right? But in this fight, we're going to be able to bring all these characters who we can just have build up, right? All these characters can stack up. Like this LR Goku and Vegeta right here, right? We can have them easily be able to get their transformation, their morale boost. We'll easily be able to get that off, you know, way before we get to, like, the real problem portions of the fights towards the end, right? You know, we'll be able to utilize their active skill. Remember that basically the two problems are at the end of this fight. Ice Shenron, the final phase, locks, so you do want to be careful of that. That's why, and he's a physical type, so it's not really advised to bring int-type characters into here too often, but a character like LR Int Namek Goku could do fine, because he has so much time to stack before you get there, right? But the hardest hitting phase in here is Nova. Nova is STR, right? So the good news for us is that our weakest unit is physical. Oh, wait, yeah. No, that actually sucks, yeah. Yes, but guess what? What do you think we're going to do when we get to Nova with Raditz? We hide him. We pray. I put my hands clasped together and I say, please, God, Nova, do not super attack slot 3. Because guess what spot Raditz is going to occupy most of these fights? Slot 3. That's where we're putting that boy. We need to get him the hell off rotation as fast as possible, right? We are able to sort of make things work. It is very funny going through all these fights with Raditz, where it's just like, all right, is there one attack at the end? That's good. Uh-oh, more than one attack? Well, hopefully he's not going to get supered, or hopefully he doesn't get bullied too hard. The other thing, too, is that this is another fight where we're able to take full advantage of, like, the gods and the LR Super Saiyan 4s, right? To really have them just stack up to infinity. And then, you know, once we get to the last couple of phases, we can begin laying down the hammers with all these powerful active skills we have. Raditz's active skill does not hit hard, but a lot of these other LR's active skills do hit quite hard, right? Obviously, the LR gods, LR Super Saiyan 4s, their active skills do tremendous amounts of damage. So there's the fight against the Shadow Dragons, right? Just hope that a bad character doesn't get locked against Ice. Just hope that Nova does not super attack Raditz, right? We're even able to get STR Namek Goku to transform, right? Sort of early on here, so that he will be able to stack up as well, and we're just able to sort of make our way through this Shadow Dragon fight. So here we go. Here's the fight against the Shadow Dragons, one of the longest fights. And of course, you know, kind of a negative with LR Goku and Vegeta, right? You gotta try and put them in harm's way quite a bit to try and get their transformation to happen as soon as you can, right? But there we go. Now let's move on to the next fight. Alright guys, we're moving on to the final fights here in the GT Red Zone, and I guess in the entire Red Zone challenge with Raditz so far. Thank God we could finish this off. So the good news is that, you know, Omega is one of the strongest int bosses in the game, which means Raditz, I think, can be, you know, fairly effective in this fight. The problem, though, is the second phase. You know, Omega, the reason Omega is really quite a tough fight is his strong type coverage. The first fight, he's an int type. The final fight, he's an int type. And that final phase, I mean, you know, when this fight first came out, his normals just hit, like, too hard. Like, there was almost no characters who you could, like, realistically and reliably put in front of this Omega's attacks and sort of be able to hang in there. Well, now, obviously, we have way more characters. All we have to do is just pray that during the STR phase, we just don't have too much, like, bad RNG, too many bad things happen to us. Oh my god, look how clean this rotation is. Omega doing a lot of attacks in slot 2 right there. Again, that's the issue for the AGL, LR, Goku, and Vegeta, right? Is that they have to do a number of super attacks, not a problem. But they also have to get hit a bunch, right? And they are a slot 2 character, so that leads to issues where they need to get hit a bunch of times, but you need to, it's not really up to you, right? It depends on where the enemy targets a lot of these hits, right? So, you know, we're able to put them in slot 2, they're able to get several hits in early, right, which can really help us potentially transform with them, get their morale boost. Then we get, you know, their ultra powerful active skill, which can do insane amounts of damage, right? And then they're just, of course, a lot tankier and do a lot more damage once the unit actually does transform, right? It's just very, very helpful for them. And then, of course, we're just using a lot of the same options, right? Like, a lot of the strongest characters in the game are on Pure Saiyans, right? Carnival Goku, every single fight. I feel like so many of these fights, he leads us to victory. Just such a ridiculous, stupid character Carnival Goku is. I mean, it's just, he's insanely good. You know, defensive stacking, guarding, revive. It's a very potent combo. LR Super Saiyan 4 Gogeta, even in a slightly nerfed version with no other Super Saiyan 4 characters to activate Saiyan Roar and GT and those types of links, this unit can still dominate many of these runs. The super attack counter, the powerful active skills, right? Yeah, that's just how it is. So again, going up against like this, us winning this fight is basically like up to this turn right here. In order to win, we basically just need very good luck with, like, this turn, right? Like, we need the super attack to be, like, aimed at, like, Goku and Vegeta, or at Kid Goku and Kid Goku dodges it, or something like that. They ate that pretty well. 141k. I feel like Kid Goku's damage reduction support really factored in right there for Goku and Vegeta to allow us to tank that a little bit better. But, there we go. There is the, you know, sort of like a full GT Red Zone sweep with Raditz. Again, during this dead period time for Dokkan right now, I'm really trying to finish up a lot of these. It's just, you know, every 200% leader, there's, you know, 3 different red zones for me to no item. And they dropped, you know, 4, they dropped 8 200% leaders in like 2 months, basically, right? With Carnival Goku, Final Form Cooler, LR Metal Cooler, the LR Goku and Vegeta, and then, of course, then, you know, in October, we had Bardock, Gamma 1, Gamma 2, and Kid Goku. So they just dropped a huge amount of 200% leads in a small amount of time. So I've been sort of like racing to get a lot of these done, and then, you know, still go back and finish pre-existing Red Zone, like, challenge runs, stuff like that as well. So let me know what you guys think of Raditz sweeping the Red Zone. Raditz, the god. Thanks, guys, for watching, and I'll catch you guys next time.